Welcome to my fun little video on creating a React application with Webpack and Babel presets. Let's start this by accessing our package.json and viewing the dependencies we can use. We're not going to use all of them, but only just a few, and we'll mention them as we go along through the video. Let's create our dist folder and the source folder. Within source, I want to have the index bridge, and I also want to have a template. We want to have the HTML for the template, and when it comes to the React root, we want the root injection. So let's create a file for that within source. root.js. And it looks like we have what we need to inject this here. Now we create the Webpack config. Alright, let's start it up. It's a big module, so let's start with module.exports. And this is going to equal, before we start anything in here, we have to require dependencies. .env to read the .env file, as well as path to get the absolute path, and HTML Webpack plugin. I'm going to call it HTML plug. Now we can export the module and start with the mode. If the process.env the only variable in there, is false, or if the env is not equal to production, which it is not, then and only then we will send this to development, or else it's going straight back to the process. Once we have the mode, let's set the entry point or the bridge. This bridge is going to distribute our main.bundle.js file. The entry is going to be entry with a path of path.resolve, dir name, and source of index.js. After entry, let's get in the habit of setting the dev tools here. Dev tool will set to the same condition as mode, because when we're in development we want the inline source map, or else we're going to send it to false. Now that we have the dev tool, let's add in the plugins, which is only the HTML Webpack plug. Let's give it some options of file name, the option of template, where we are going to target this template within source to get to this HTML. And finally, we are going to set the inject property to inject the script tag within the index file. So the script tag in the index.html file can either go in the head or the body. We're going to set it to body to come after all of the elements to load. And finally, output. Let's set our output, or the object of output, and we have a path of path.resolve dir name and distribution. The file name is going to be main.bundle.js, and let's set a clean property of true to clean up all of the copies and set it in one file on every rebuild. Now I believe we have everything to start our Webpack, but not everything for the React application. So let's start the Webpack and run it. Which property? Plugins. I cannot be in the spelling bee for this. Let's go to plugins and change that to plugins. We built our app successfully. Now let's add in our index. Let's add in the template of a template boilerplate code, Babel React. And since we're going to be working with a React application, let's start this with a root. Div element with an ID of root. Once the root is set, now we can develop our dev server. The dev server, we will set this up. Let's make it an object, and we only need a few properties for this, for what we need. The port is going to be 9876. The static is going to be an object, and within the static object we have a directory to point to, which is going to be this distribution folder. This is synonymous to Express, where it's using that middleware, express.static, client and public, or just public, to target all of your static files within that folder and produce an index.html file, a style, and so much more. And dist. One more property. We'll set the open to false. That way the browser does not automatically open. Now that that's set, we're going to create or configure the root for our React root. Before we set this up, let's add an app.js file to test with the root. We're going to add it in source. If we go to the app.js, I'm going to configure my React function template. We're going to have an h1 of hello parent. Now let's go to this root. This is where we're going to have our root for React. Const node or const element equals document.get element by ID of root. So essentially we're going to get this root from the template, which is really going to be in the distribution index. Now let's import some important packages here. Import create root from React DOM of root. Let's also import React from React, and let's import this app.js file. We're already exporting it out. Import app from app. Now, since we already called the element, let's call root const. const root equals create root of element. Once that root's created, let's render the root. Root.render react.strict mode. Okay, let's try this one more time. React dot strict mode. There's some syntax error with this thing here, but bear with me. There we go. And then within strict mode, we can add app. Once we have this set, let's verify that the app is good to go. We don't have any states, we don't have any use effects, no hooks, just simply we're returning a render of div with an h1 of hello parent. Now let's go to the Webpack config. If we were to run this, the Webpack React wouldn't be rendered because it's not recognized by Webpack. To have that recognized, we would have to set some ground rules. And to set these ground rules, let's go above publics, plugins, and add the module. Module is going to be an object with a rules array, and these rules are just simply going to be rules. The rule one, we're going to start with, we'll skip styles for this video and only focus on the Babel. Each rule is going to come in the form of an object, and they're going to have a few properties in there. One of them being the test, where we set in a regex to test for that file name or file names. Could be one or more. For Babel itself, we're going to use M or C. Doesn't have to be there, so conditional JS. Next, we're going to exclude node modules. And finally, we're going to use the Babel loader. And this Babel loader can be found within your package.json. That's what we're going to be going to use for, where are you? There it is. We're going to be using this for our Babel and in the plugins above. Now that we have the tests running, or the rules, we are going to configure the Babel RC. So let's touch a new file in the root. Next, like in the same root as Webpack config, so that Webpack config can create an extension. This is going to be .babel rc. This extension is going to have the presets property and should have the presets. So add Babel core, add Babel presets environment, add Babel presets React. That's it for our Babel RC or the presets. Do we need anything else for now? I don't believe we do. We do actually need something else. If we go into the index.js file or the bridge, we have nothing inside of it. We need to put the React root in here and import it here so that it can be bundled within our JS file. Let's go ahead and do that. Import root.js. If we run this, let's give it a go and see what happens. I expect to see this app, hello parent. Excuse me. npm run build and npm run serve for the dev server. We get some errors. Let's check it out. Cannot find this package. Let's see. In our Babel RC, we have Babel presets environment, and I see that in the React. That doesn't make sense. We don't even have that. Presets React. Let's run it again. We get a same error. Cannot find package Babel presets. I think I'm spelling it wrong. Yeah. So let's go to the Babel RC. Take away the S from presets. Take away the S from presets. Let's run this again. Alright, we get a better receipt. Path with the .root is not exported from package. See export fields in users. Okay. Package.json. Let's go back to the source index. Root.js. We're importing React. We import app. How's our template? We have the template here. Template's good. And this error is telling us that source root.js not found. Let's do something differently. Modules React DOM. Oh, I see here. In React DOM, when we create the root, I did a typo. I said React DOM /root when it should be React DOM /client. Since we got that far in the code to see an error, I believe this next build will be the one. I just know it. And we are good on the build. Let's hit the serve. We're serving on 9876, right? We are. Let's hit it up. Localhost 9876. All right, and we get our React application. Since we have our application, let's go back to the VS Code and clean it up. Have some fun with this. We'll close everything out except for app.js. And let's say we want to have a child. Const child element equals, let's use text. We're going to return the same render as we do for the parent. And this is going to be a div. we'll say hello child or text. Now since we have this text here, we're going to pass text through this child, and this text is going to come from the parent app. But before we set the states, we need to instantiate our states or our imports. So const text set text equals use state of child. We're going to send text through the parent or through the child element, but first we need to take this child element and configure a JSX for it, put it in here. We're going to keep it between the divs and place it under the parent hello parent h1. Let's set a JSX element for this. Bam, and we're going to set the props and pass through text of child. So in theory, we're getting hello parent and hello child. And that is how you make your React Babel application.